I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Houston, we have a problem.
But why name bodies?
Are you not entertained?
Why so serious?
It's alive! It's alive!
The snozberry tastes like snozberry.
Welcome to Film Logic. I'm your host, Mike. We are talking about the movies of yesterday, today, and tomorrow with all the fandoms in between. Adam, I just surprised the bejesus out of you by hitting record.
Hey, they say always be ready, so I guess I should have been ready.
Hey, you should have been ready.
Yeah, that's the first thing they tell us in improv class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and always be ready, right?
Yeah, you're always looking for that red light of recording.
Right. You never know. And they tell you that in broadcast school too, right? Like the first thing they tell you is always assume the camera is on.
Well, it's on. The recording thingy is on. And I just want to shout out that we are part of the Retro Logic Network, who last year, September 20th, let us record our very first episode, and this is our 1-year anniversary.
Wow.
If you're not on our Discord talking about how great it is to have movies and retro video games, you are missing out. That's all
exactly.
I got to say.
That's it. That's all we got.
Yeah. So, yeah. A year ago, me and Aston, and we had a dream. It was going to be just fun talking about movies. We're not going to care who listened to us. People came, people went, life happens. Adam, you were a guest on here. You had no idea there was an opening, and now you're the co-host.
Yeah, look at us now.
Yes. Now, what was your first episode that you were on?
Ooh, oh man. Way to put me on the spot, Mike. I
can look it up. I just want you to sweat.
Right? It had to have been a movie that you wanted to get my take on for something.
Let's see. I know it.
Hit me.
It's actually something your brother would be really good at talking about.
Oh, is it anime movies?
Yes.
You
talked about Janime with us.
Yes, for January.
Yep. Your Name.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yes.
I think also, if memory serves, I think I waxed poetic about Akira one too many times.
Yep. Now that's a well.
that is a well.
That is a well.
Right? And speaking of into the future, maybe in January, I think I'm going to see there's a re-release of the movie there's an anime movie called Paprika that is very influential in movies such as, I don't know, Inception.
That's what I keep hearing, that we shouldn't even be watching Nolan movies. We should just be watching the animes that they're based upon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Cut out the middleman.
Right? That whole hallway scene that, Nolan is super well known for, he ripped it wholesale right from that anime.
I know. And, both movies don't use CGI.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But, since we're walking down memory lane for this episode, Mike, I mean, what kind of stands out for you from the year?
Well, the numbers don't lie. And we know everybody, every time a bell rings, a podcast is made.
Right.
I think that's a Jimmy Stewart line ripped right from him.
Yeah. There's a sucker born every minute, right? That's him?
Yes. We're in a pond of podcasts. But I have to say that, the people who love us, Retro Logic, they've treated us well, and they gave us a fair shot. And I think we'll never know who loves to hear us and who doesn't want to hear us. But I can say that, we're bringing up movie topics that are fun to listen to. People are listening to us. We're having some active conversations on our Discord, mostly about Star Wars this and Marvel that. But there's been a lot of good topics about some of 2023's best movies.
Yeah, for sure. And, I would really say that the 2023 was a really pivotal year, I think, for movies. I think it was really it was like the first year that had enough kind of gap from the COVID years. And it was really a gauge to see if people will, come back to the theater. And it felt like a lot of really big movies came out this year, and it was a really big year for cinema.
Oh, absolutely. One thing that, here's a hack, is if you want lots of viewers, just say wild things about Star Wars. I did a YouTube short based on our podcast. And there was that when we're talking about, how Star Wars are gatekeeping.
Sure.
And I said, why Star Wars fans are gatekeepers. 1 minute short, 93 listens.
Yeah.
Just to hear us talk about that. And it's amazing. What got in second? Is Marvel going to burst in the year 2023?
Yeah.
So, people just, they can't get enough of this Disney Trinity: Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it definitely felt like this year was a really big test for all three of those things. All for different reasons. I think Pixar, with its, release of Elemental and how contentious that was. Star Wars, I think, really trying to hang its hat on the TV series. I know this was last year, but building off the success of Andor and the third season of The Mandalorian that came out this year, and now with the Ahsoka series, I think people are really kind of like, the fate of Star Wars in the future is kind of in the balance. And then with Marvel, I would say that this year the releases have been, I think, a lot more misses than hits, and I think that's the first time in a while for the MCU. I think it took a lot of hits.
Yeah. This was the year that Disney said, maybe we need to scale it back a little. We got a little too excited, and there's such a thing as too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
And, even though we can pump out $1 million Star Wars and Star Wars spinoffs, doesn't mean we should.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the biggest tells is the cancellation, I think, of a lot of the Star Wars movies that were kind of on the radar. There was talk of a Rogue One, not a Rogue One, like a Rogue Squadron movie that kind of got tossed to the side. And then, Patty Jenkins, what a year she's had. Poor Patty Jenkins. Just between, losing, losing Wonder Woman and her Star Wars project getting the boot. But yeah, no, it definitely felt like Marvel kind of and Star Wars and Disney kind of really took a pause on a lot of stuff, because really for the longest time it was like, it felt like the years leading up to 2008, right, where the bubble was just going and going, and it does feel like for the first time this is the bubble that bursts. And I think people are kind of looking at stuff with a fine-tooth comb. Same thing with DC. I think superhero movies are finally kind of being viewed, I think, a little bit more negatively.
Yeah.
And I think I saw somewhere that 11 of the last like 12 DC movies have been flops.
Yeah. Well, there was that list they showed you, and like the top 10 Marvel and DC superhero movies that like did horrible,
Oh.
and DC was 7 of those.
Yeah.
I feel really bad because it's not like it's a company that's coming out of like oh, I want to try this. I mean, this is 100-year-old company that created the culture that spawned these stories that we love so much. And to see them suffer as if like they just decided out of the blue, let's start a comic book company.
Right.
It's just so sad.
Right. No, for sure. Correction, it was 7 of the last DC movies, not 12.
Yeah.
And these numbers are pretty crazy. Do you want to take a quick little dive?
I love numbers. Tell me.
Well, and it's crazy because by any stretch of the imagination, this should be a success. But because of the budgets that are getting put into these things like, The Flash making 268 million is a flop, or Black Adam, making 391 million. In what world is that a flop? But it is when that movie costs so much.
Right.
But
which is okay because it was The Rock's money.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Right. And quick bunny trail, us. But it's funny because, obviously right now there's a writer strike, acting strike. So The Rock is kind of like schlepped his way back to the WWE. I don't know if you've seen this, Mike.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And so him and John Cena were on SmackDown or something like this week at the time of recording. Right. And I was like, wow, how prodigal son.
Yeah. Some people are like, you coward, you crossed the line by going back into acting. But then they're like, did you? It's pro wrestling. It's not really acting, or is it? It's a sport, but you're doing it pretend. So
right.
And I don't know. I wish more actors would choose that. Like Helen Mirren. They're like, oh shoot, I can't go back to acting. I'm going to go on, AEW.
Yeah, no, it's weird because the wrestling is definitely its own animal, and it's very insular, and yeah, they definitely have their own. They march on their own rules, so it didn't surprise me at all. But it's just funny to see, the biggest, the biggest, people like The Rock is, he's The Rock, and it's funny to see him go back to SmackDown on a random Tuesday night in Little Rock, Arkansas, or wherever they were. Yeah, it's weird. It definitely feels like now we're gonna start seeing actors and quote unquote famous people start doing really random side quests.
You know what? That is hilarious, but it also you get to see who's the most resilient.
Sure.
Like the fun part is you get to see, these actors, their savings are dwindling with each day. And some of them gasp. They might have to budget more strictly. And others are like, give me something. Give me WWE. Give me a deodorant commercial. That's one thing I've seen on Hulu is like all these actors are doing cologne commercials and watch commercials.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, no, I mean, enough of that, Mike. Let's get back to the fun stuff.
Well, one fun thing I want to do. You shared those numbers about The Rock only making 200 or 380,000 or million on, but I'm wondering, if he got any justification with DC League of Super Pets. Because many people forget that's part of the DC universe.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that didn't make it onto the list. Maybe that's maybe that was one of the few successes. Yeah, but again, that was like The Rock and Kevin Hart, right?
Yeah. Well, that movie made $207 million
On a budget of what?
on a budget of let's see. Did they tell you the budget on this website? I might have to get back to you on that.
That's okay.
But it's like an animation, so I can't imagine it went too. It's not telling me what the budget is. Okay, keep talking. I'm gonna look it up.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean that movie had quite an interesting cast. I got it if you
Okay,
if you found it. At least according to Wikipedia, it had a budget of 90 million.
Okay.
And
So that's a win.
I would say that's a win. And definitely a lot of that money went into the cast. It had Kate McKinnon, John Krasinski, Vanessa Bayer, Diego Luna, Ben Schwartz, Keanu was also in. I forgot about that. Kevin Hart, of course, and The Rock, I'm sure, co-headlining that. But I guess people don't really. I guess people don't really count that, really, right? Maybe because it was like a kids movie. I don't know. What do you think?
No,
because it's animated.
That's why I think animation is like the answer that no one wants to consider. It's lower budget,
right?
Even something as silly as being a super pet can get you 2.3 times what you spent. Spider-Man proved that you can be cool and still be an animated feature.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest movies that came out this year were definitely, a lot of them were animated, between Spider-Man and the Mario movie.
Right. Mario's not complaining, "Oh, we're not canon because we're animated." They're not saying that.
Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did pretty good at the box office.
My gosh, yes, they did.
So I mean, I definitely think 2023 was definitely a good year for the old animated scene, because like the Mario Brothers movie grossed like over $1 billion.
Yeah,
which was, I think a lot of people were really surprised by that.
Yeah, I would say so, because it was such a simple take, and video games have never ever deserved that because their audience isn't that big, and I guess DreamWorks was just very smart.
Yeah, right. They've had quite a run of it. That Puss in Boots movie was pretty good too. I really enjoyed that. And then upcoming, I think probably right at the tail end of the year, is that new Miyazaki movie that I'm sure will do huge numbers in Japan, and I'm sure there's enough crossover appeal in the United States that'll probably make a good chunk of change. I'll probably go see it a couple times.
What's that movie that he says I'm not going to advertise at all because
that's this movie?
Yeah, to be able to say that and probably to be okay financially on your movie that's pretty stellar,
right? I mean, Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli, they're just like that, right? Like they have such a track record, and people just know, like people say, I don't like anime, but, and then I like Howl's Moving Castle, or Princess Mononoke, or whatever it is. But I can't think of a studio that has had more hits than, Studio Ghibli. Like even their like lesser known stuff, like, The Wind Rises or Ponyo or
Mhm.
Kiki's Delivery Service, like those are still like, those are still incredibly popular, incredibly, you know, those are held in the canon of animated movies.
Right. And I'm looking up Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. $481 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, for something that, I mean, The Flash, for all that it spent, says, oh man, I wish I could have that.
Right? And the cat or the Puss in Boots, like the cast for that, I mean, it's an awesome cast. Between, Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek. But then, even through there's, Florence Pugh and John Mulaney and,
Yeah. I
like
mean,
it's
dare I
starstruck.
say that 2023 is the year of the animated cartoon feature?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally there with you, Mike. I think that there are two, like looking back on the year, I think there are two major headlines. Is that one, animated features should be taken more seriously, and they definitely dominated the box office. And then I don't think you can also, and maybe we can talk about this. I don't want to talk about it too much because I think we talked a lot about it, but
Mm,
just the resurgence of the summer blockbuster and, Barbie and Oppenheimer, and
yeah.
I think those are the two big takeaways. And not surprisingly enough, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, which definitely was, in times past, I feel like that would have been all everyone was talking about, right?
Mhm.
Like, if you put up, like, in 20, like if, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 came out in 2012, and, you put that up against, some biopic about some, and, some
Mhm.
astronomical physicist or whatever, like, like that doesn't track, right? Like you'd be like, of course the Marvel movie is,
Yeah.
would, destroy this, but it feels like an afterthought. Like it's not even, I wouldn't even say it's the best superhero movie that's come out this summer.
Mhm.
Like between Spider-Man and, I mean, if you want to count Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a superhero movie, uh they're mutants, they count, right?
Yeah. I
Like
mean, they're
that.
definitely in the comic books a lot. So,
Right, exactly. That, and really I think, I, as much as good as Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is, I just enjoyed Blue Beetle so much more. Um
interesting.
just from a, yeah, and I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about Blue Beetle a little bit later. It's one of my, it's one of the movies I want to talk a little bit more in depth about later on in another
Yeah.
segment. But yeah, I don't even necessarily, like, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I think was a very good movie, a very technically
Yeah.
sound movie, but it was just like very Marvel, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a whole fruit salad when
Yeah,
of comic book Marvel. Like, I swear, Disney has like these rules. Like, they have like this brand feeling,
right.
and that like no director can ever escape it.
Except
And
Gunn.
yeah, I mean, even James Gunn, like he does his best to make his own spin, but
Right.
I don't know. There's like this invisible burden of this is a Disney controlled
Right.
series that you kind of feel in the back of your mind. It's like in the corner of your eye.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Like even, when James Gunn was able to get the F word in, it
Yeah.
just it just felt corporate. Right?
It
Like
felt like he had to write a letter to Walt Disney.
he had to trade the life of his firstborn child
Yes. Yeah.
to Walt Disney, to be an Imagineer. Yeah, no, it was, yeah, it's exactly what you said, right? Like it just, you walked in and you got served exactly what you thought it was going to be. It was like going to McDonald's.
Yeah. The word I'm thinking of is organized. Disney
Yeah,
or Marvel movies feel so organized, compartmentalized.
yeah,
Like, this is the block of humor, and this is the block where you feel sad. This is the block where you have the cool action scene. And I think that works because when you know it's going to be organized and put into neat rows, and you know it's gonna hit everything perfectly of equal measure, then there's less chance that you have to like overanalyze it and say, did I like that?
right, right. No, for sure. It definitely, it's designed in a way to cut their own losses, right? Like
Yeah.
it's never gonna be, it's never gonna be Oppenheimer. It's never gonna be, you know, The Godfather Part Two. But it's also, hopefully never gonna be as bad as Daredevil again, or as bad as,
It's not going to be
Elektra.
Green Lantern.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Like it's gonna hit, it's gonna sit in that ballpark of, 6.2 to 7.5, and it's gonna make money, and that's kind of what it feels like, right? They discovered the formula for a movie that costs just enough that it looks good and is flashy, but it also is cheap enough where they can make just an obscene amount of money on it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like just funny enough to keep 35 somethings entertained, but like the humor still can go over the 8-year-olds that is oohing and eyeing at, the CGI.
Right, absolutely. And when James Gunn worked on the Suicide Squad,
Hmm.
like you could tell that that harness, that bit was off the horse,
Right.
and he was running in wild directions, and it's not as organized, but that movie still made some like some it made some wild jumps that he wouldn't be able to make, and he had to take some huge risks on a
Yeah.
story that isn't as organized. And my brain did have to work a little bit harder on that one. Like, do I love this? Do I hate this? Is this good? Yes. Why do I like this? Why do Disney? Tell me why I like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For sure. No, absolutely. No, I totally agree. And, I think that is James Gunn is definitely someone inevitably you're going to have to keep an eye on, into the coming year, and, depending on how all the strikes and all that stuff go. But, who knows when we're going to start seeing new movies from these big studios again. But, yeah, he's definitely someone that kind of has the industry looking at him right now, right? Like he's, the former Disney golden boy, now working for the other team. He's got the whole
Mhm.
studio under his creative control, and it's going to live and die by James Gunn. And I guess the question is he? Do you think he has enough chops? Does he have the chops to be able to pull it off? And I think that's why a lot of people were looking at the DC movies that came out this summer to kind of see the direction that they might be turning.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were pretty disappointed by The Flash, and nobody went to go see Blue Beetle, which is a shame. And nobody cares about Aquaman, and
Mhm.
not even the studio. And like that's coming out later this month, and I don't, nobody cares.
That is very strange because I saw a trailer and I'm like, oh yeah, Aquaman. What's that guy been up to?
Right?
And yeah, it's almost like the internet. It's almost like, no, not the internet. DC is like, man, this house is burning down, And if you want to
Yeah.
watch it burn down to its cinders, be my guest. If you don't, we'll just wait for James Gunn.
Right? And you would think that this would be an absolute layup of a movie to make money in the climate that we're in right now, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not going against anything.
Mhm.
They're, people are, we're coming off a summer of people that went to go see went to the movies. It was, a very profitable summer. People
Mhm.
went. People are excited about going, and it's an actor that people love, Jason Momoa, who was in another blockbuster movie earlier this summer,
Loved him.
and exactly, and again, it's in a climate where there just isn't anything else coming out to compete against it,
Mhm.
but nobody cares, and that's crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say this is the wonky year. You
Yeah.
said it perfectly last time when I said, "Ooh, this seems like a great year for movies to come back." And you said, "Really? Do you think that's true?" And now that I think about it, I'm only looking at the animation. And I'm not looking at the bulk of movies,
Mm,
which is the ones we all get hyped about. The Star Wars this, the Marvel that, the
right.
DC this.
Right. Yeah. I definitely think uh and I guess to kind of clarify or to expound on that point, I think it wasn't that there was a lack of movies that came out this year. I think there were a lot of movies that came out this year, but there were so many remakes and or or sequels, and people just didn't go to see those movies,
Mm-hmm.
but people went to go see the new original, you know, awesome stuff like we were talking about, like the animated movies, Barbie, Oppenheimer. People went to go see, apparently the Gran Turismo movie did pretty decent in the box office. So like people are going to the movies, they just aren't going for what the Hollywood execs thought that they were going to go see, right? Like if
Mm-hmm.
you told me that, there's a Fast and the Furious movie out with Jason Momoa as, the main villain, I'd be like, yeah, no, that sounds like it'll print money, and it just didn't. And yeah, I definitely think it's kind of like what I was saying, where it was a year of movies, but not a lot of them were great, and I think that there were definitely more stinkers than hits.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So
Yeah,
let's look at this, burning carousel of a year.
yeah,
Um, Starting back September 2022
yeah.
to now, like what movies? What has your film experience has been?
Oh man. So do we want to talk about the movies that I picked? Is
Yeah,
that what we're
just
feeling? Yeah,
name
just going
off your
for it.
movies.
Well, I think I'm gonna start off strong, and I really wish, um, and this is the movie that I think is the exception to everything that I was just saying. Um, uh, but John Wick 4, man, John Wick 4 was such a good movie. It's probably um it's probably my favorite movie that I saw this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's definitely the movie that I walked out of being like the most, the most excited, the most hyped. Um, this movie, it was made, even though it was a pretty big, huge, massive movie.
Mm-hmm.
It only had a budget of $100 million,
Right.
and it grossed 432 million. And I know that it's it's the fourth, the fourth movie in the cycle, but it is an original character. It is an incredibly original story, and the actors in it, all of them across the board, are just brilliant. This one in particular, Donnie Yen and Bill Skarsgård, absolutely steal the show. And Keanu is there anchoring the action. Um, and somehow, some way, Chad Stahelski, you know, former stuntman, stunt coordinator, he makes he has some shots in this movie where you're like, this could hang up in the Louvre, and then they show stuff in the Louvre. Like, that's how great this movie is. And it just, there's so many imaginative action sequences. And I think also what really resonated with audiences is the amount of real stunts and real effects that they did for these films, that just can't be replicated with CGI. And yeah, so I really do think that John Wick 4 is the exception to my statement of these the movies that didn't do well were these recycled ideas. But I think what John Wick 4 does so well is that it's almost like the anti Fast and the Furious movie, right? Where the Fast and the Furious, all these massive and crazy stunts are all CGI. You look at every single person that's in the movie is doing this with a stunt man, right? Or it's CGI'd in, or it's just not tethered in reality. Whereas John Wick 4, like, that's Keanu is doing a lot of his own action sequences. He's really holding that gun. He's really shooting. He's really doing that gun fu.
Yeah.
And all the other characters. And sure, like, he gets hit by a car and he keeps going, but it's at least you see him limp. Whereas you see Dominic Toretto drop from space, and he gets up and just dusts his shoulders off.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to feel like this is another weird thing, is that, like, it might be the curse of having a movie out in January, but that movie feels so buried. Like, it shined, it did really good. Everyone who's talking about it loves it. And you would think this movie would be, like, so accessible, but, like, I feel like it's gotten, like, it got buried somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't even know where to tell people to go watch it.
It's on the Netflix DVD queue, because I think that's the only way I can see it. Like, it might be going to Peacock, or it might be there already. I know they're doing a Continental, like, side story,
right,
which looks pretty cool. And
for
so
sure.
It's on my DVD queue, but then Netflix said, we're not doing DVDs anymore. In fact, if we sent you one, just keep it. Because we have no way of getting it back from you.
Right.
So if you have a DVD out through Netflix, it's yours now.
That's crazy.
So I no longer, unless Redbox, there's no longer a way to get any of the movies that like the streaming services have passed.
Right. Which is crazy, because, like, by every stretch of the imagination, this movie should be, at the forefront. Like, it made 400 million. It has, glowing reviews across any and every review aggregate that you want. Like, it's got a 94 on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, and when was the last time an action movie, right, got like a 94? Like, that's crazy to me. Yeah, like, this movie, did better, review wise than Oppenheimer and Barbie. It made just as much money as Oppenheimer. it, but people, it was there. It got its moment, and then it's kind of just like gone, and
And it
it's a
might not
shame,
even be in the conversation for movie of the year.
which is a shame because it's really that good.
Right. And that's what, baffles me.
Hmm.
Let's take you back to 2020,
Sure.
where we were all sick and in our house, and I saw the Oscars that were based on 2020 movies, and they were all like these cerebral, like coming of age, elderly women on a road trip type movies. Man overthinking this, really get into your head kind of movies. And I'm like, is this the future of movies? Is just like this artsy noir stuff?
Yeah.
And then 2023 comes along and says, no, we want Fast X, The Flash, John Wick. We want them back in the Oscar running. We want Puss in Boots to be in the Oscar running.
Sure.
And darn it, it happened.
Yeah.
And so John Wick, like this is 2023 is the year of the franchise actually winning us over.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I would be. I mean, I'm gonna be interested to see what the Oscars say and do this year. Because I still think it's Oppenheimer and Barbie and the Spider-Man and uh there's an A24 film that came out this year that's slipping my mind. It's a Korean drama. Um, yeah, I think that those are still going to clean up,
Yeah.
but and we didn't even talk about yet, which is surprising to me. The other Disney owned thing that came back this summer, Indiana Jones. Um, yeah, like it definitely felt like the studios thought we wanted, all these movies, and then they came out, and the people were like, okay, but
Right.
people, or like the Mario movie, like the Mario movie is probably gonna be in the conversation with Barbie to win, best song, best original song.
Right.
Um, so the Mario movie could win an Oscar, at least be nominated, and if it doesn't, it's a shame. But yeah, it's a weird year for movies.
Right. And the fact that we might have all of our Oscar picks and it's been summer, and like usually they come
Mm,
out in December. That's when like the
right,
pretentious directors, like they do the dump of all their like
right,
their sing your heart out movie ambitious ideas.
right,
But it might be too late. We might have all our picks.
right. Definitely. I mean, I still think there's some stuff on the horizon that people are should definitely go see, like The Creator. I think that's gonna be incredible. Um, but I think the writer strike had a lot to do with it too. Like I think Dune 2 was supposed to come out,
Mm.
um, and that got delayed, and I mean that was definitely gonna be in the conversation, I think, um, for some people. So yeah, I guess it remains to be seen. Shall I go on to talk about some of my other movies, or did you have something you wanted to talk about? A movie?
Yes, go to your second movie.
Man, this one I think was also another pleasant surprise for a lot of people, and I really enjoyed it. It felt like a breath of fresh air, and it did okay at the box office. But Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. Um,
Another
you know,
franchise.
a franchise, but a franchise that hasn't really gotten mainstream media love.
Yeah,
Um,
it has no right to have a good movie.
right. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, as a man with a D20 tattooed on his arm and is obsessively playing Baldur's Gate 3,
Mhm.
and has spent way too much money buying Dungeons and Dragons auxiliary things and books. I yeah, I love Dungeons and Dragons. And it as much as Stranger Things really kind of pushed the game back into the popular consciousness. um Dungeons and Dragons is definitely more of um a darling on the streaming circuit and on the internet, with Dimension 20 and Critical Role and all those games. You and your brother, your brother and um you know
Mm.
your friends down the street, right, have a podcast where they play Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons, right? Like, you throw a stick and you can find someone that plays D&D now, which is incredible. Like, I love that. But you're right. There hasn't been a whole lot of representation from the mainstream media of this game and this property, this IP, and I think that when it came out and how critically well it was received, surprised a lot of people. And it is, again, it's still a niche. It's a board game, right? It's a TTRPG. Um, at the end of the day, so it's still very niche. But the fact that it was so well received and people went to go see it, and someone like Chris Pine was in it, and yeah, and Michelle Rodriguez, and it was
Mm.
just fun. It was refreshing and fun, and you didn't have to think about you didn't have to think back to episode 4 of the third season of Dungeons and Dragons, the TV show, right? Like, you could just go and enjoy this adventure, and it was self-contained, it was fun, and as someone that has a lot of knowledge of the lore, there was enough nods and wink wink nudge nudges for me that it kept me really interested. But also, it was so accessible for people. Like, you didn't have to know anything about the game of Dungeons and Dragons to enjoy it. um and it was just a good family fun comedy action adventure movie. And I really hope that more of these kind of movies come out, because those are the movies that I loved going to go see when I was growing up and and into my teen years. Stuff like The Man from Uncle, or um all these action adventure fun one-off movies that came out. And yeah, so I definitely I enjoyed that movie a whole lot. And if you didn't get a chance to see it yet this year, do yourself a favor. It's really great. And I think one of the things that um I liked most about it was its runtime of 134 minutes. It didn't overstay its welcome. It was just long enough to be able to tell a whole story, but it wasn't 4.5 hours.
Hmm. Yeah. It's always the weird things that are getting like the best attention for movies. Like D&D is great as its core game, but like I can't think of a video game based on D&D that reviewed really well. Much less a movie. I mean, they had that early 2000s movie that is forever lost in the cheesy vault. And so
Right.
for them,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, besides Boulder's Gate, like 1, 2, and 3 are like.
Is
Those are
Baldur's
pretty-
Gate part of the D&D?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. Like, why can't you just call it D&D 1, 2, and 3? Why gotta be so difficult?
Well, because Boulder's Gate is a city in the D&D universe, at least in Faerun.
All right, so I guess like a lameoid like me wouldn't know that. So yeah,
Right. It's kind of like Skyrim, right? Like, it takes place in,
right.
it's like the name of the country or whatever, but it's in the world of.
No one ever says let's play Elder Scrolls.
Right, exactly.
Let's play Skyrim. Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of that idea.
Okay. Yeah. I get EverQuest, Ice Dale. I get all those confused.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Also, that I don't know if you've heard of this. This is like a massive this is a massive bunny trail, but there's this like alternate universe called Dark Sun. And it's like if you imagine like what's it called? Oh my gosh. Welcome to the Thunderdome. What's that?
Oh yeah, Mad Max.
Mad Max. It's like Mad Max, but like Dungeons and Dragons. It's like super controversial. Yeah, but yeah, so there's something in Dungeons and Dragons for everyone.
Right. So that movie's on my watch list.
You should do it.
I mean, there's so many movies on my watch list.
I mean,
Thank you, 2023.
Right? Well,
Yeah.
is there? Shall I go on to my next one, or did you want to add something?
Talking. You're on a roll.
I am on a roll. So Dungeons and Dragons definitely a huge, massive plus, for me. And then the last new movie that came out in 2023 that I want to talk about is Blue Beetle. I went to go see it on a whim. My friend invited me. I didn't have to pay for my ticket, so maybe that played a part in it. But it was just everything that I wanted from like a superhero movie. It didn't overstay its welcome. It wasn't 2.5 hours. But
It had sword fights.
right, it had really great action sequences. And you'll have to I'll either have to go look it up or you can remind me, but the main actor also from
Zolo
from Karate Kid.
Yes.
He was awesome, so charismatic. You couldn't look away from his action sequences. But it was just a fun summer movie, and really it just had so much heart. At the center of it, it was just really about a family and their bond together, the love that they have for each other, and that's really what kind of gave those early Marvel movies, I think, part of their charm. Was that a lot of those movies just had heart in it, right? Like there was a moral backbone that you could stand on, right? Like there was something. It was just about the good guys being good, the bad guys are bad, and the good guys do the right thing. And the Winter Soldier kind of comes along, and then like Civil War, and then now it's like these movies that are kind of gray, and Loki, like the TV series, I'm super excited about. But again, you're like, oh, am I supposed to be rooting for Loki? He just committed like a war crime on New York,
Right.
like 10 years ago. And I think another thing that made Blue Beetle so good was the supporting cast was so great. George Lopez stole the screen every time he was there. The wonderful actress that played Jenny Cord, she was great. Their names are escaping me right now, but yeah, just across the board, it was just nice, right? Like I left the theater being like, yeah, like that was a movie and I liked it and I didn't have to think hard about it and I didn't have to wonder who the bad guys were. I didn't have to wonder, did I like the hero and his actions, and for once I left the movie, I was like, no, the main character hero made the right choice and I supported every single one of his decisions and they weren't random or weird or out of character or he wasn't an anti-hero. He was just a kid trying to protect his family and the girl he loves. And just the themes of self-sacrifice and serving and love. And yeah, it was so nice, Mike. It was so nice.
Yeah. And that's one of those movies where I'm like, man, this is one of those movies where we're lucky if it's better than Green Lantern. At its best, it'll be forgettable. At its worst, it'll just prove that why we hate DC. And I thought for sure my DC intuition was firing. My spider sense was tingling. Like, this is a throwaway movie.
Right.
And you know what's going to happen is I'm going to be like, okay, DC stopped making throwaway movies. And then I watch Aquaman 2. And then we're going to have a conversation where it's like, Aquaman 2 made $100,000. And it spent $2 trillion. And it's going to be Shazam 2 all over again.
Yeah.
Love Shazam 1. They can't fail. Zachary Levi can't fail. He's so infectious. And what does he do behind my back? He fails.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. For sure. Did you see Blue Beetle?
No, I've been afraid to.
Oh, okay.
Everyone's reviews sound really good, so now I want to.
Yeah.
I don't think
Definitely.
It's on HBO Max, which doesn't matter because I don't have it.
Yeah, when it comes out, or comes to Redbox or whatever, definitely go see it. See it with your family. I think your family would love to see it.
I think so too.
Yeah, it was just so heartwarming, and it was really great, and it didn't for all of Zach, what's his name, Zack Snyder's cynicism and morally gray, and the Snyder cut, and them pushing for this really dark DC universe. It really felt like the Blue Beetle movie really captured what the character is like in the comic books, right? Where it's just like this fun family first superhero kid that's just there and enjoying the ride. And yeah, then there's just no cynicism.
I always thought Blue Beetle was DC's answer to Spider-Man, because Spider-Man was having so much fun, and he had all these fun one-liners, and he was young, he was hip with the kids, and they're like, we
Bug
need
themed.
that. Yeah, we need our own bug kid. And he needs to be diverse, so we can have one up on those Marvel guys.
Right.
That's why I've always been afraid of Blue Beetle, because I was like, okay, this is always going to be compared to as lesser Spider-Man, but I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. No, for sure. He's similar in the ways that you want him to be similar in terms of like that he's a good person who does good things for other people from a sense of altruism. But he's different enough that if you put them next to each other in a room, you'd be like, oh, like Peter's different than Jaime. And so I think it's really great, and I really hope I'm not hyping it up too much for you, but I really think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm adding it to my list of movies I need to get around to seeing.
Yeah.
So this has been the year that I came back to seeing movies, and there's definitely movies I've wanted to rock. There's movies I had low hopes in, and they ended up rocking. And then there's my heartbreak with DC,
right?
Which I've learned to like just die a little with DC on film, because I think to myself, okay, the best stories have already been told in the comic books,
right?
If you squint, it looks like they're moving in the comics,
right?
And I don't have to worry about the live action outshining it, because it doesn't seem like anyone knows how to use visual effects. So I'm getting the best art and the best stories already. So, I've moved on from that. Since I am a DC diehard, I did find things I liked about The Flash and Shazam 2. But, I take it with a grain of salt that those movies are not what, are not helping the superhero genre.
Right.
And, they're not doing anything as a favor to them. And we can just take that as it is. So far, my favorite movie, the movie that's been giving me pure joy, making me feel like a kid again. And this was August. I think August was the month that Blue Beetle came out, but it was also the month that Mutant Mayhem came out for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I thought, the kiddiness of it was going to turn me off, and I know it did for a lot of people. They were hoping that like Splinter would be like that dark Japanese, sensei.
Right.
The Ninja Turtles would be gritty, but that was definitely not the case when you have Nickelodeon attached to your...
Right.
So, but I ended up falling in love with like the chemistry and the atmosphere, and like even the silliness wasn't so silly that I was like groaning and cringing, but it was just like, these one-liners are funny. The jokes that April O'Neil tells to kind of like her cynicism and her struggles, that like the movie could have been about her and I wouldn't have minded because she had a lot of great lines. And like I didn't mind that like Michelangelo did not feel like a true party dude, because he was part of some greater greater chemistry between the brothers. So I think this was me coming off of, Spider-Man, the Enter the Spider-Verse or Through the Spider-Verse. I came into that movie wanting that joy that I got from the first Spider-Verse movie. And when I didn't get it from that, I was so glad that the Ninja Turtles movie picked up that spare and said, here you go. Movies can be fun, and we don't have to cry about Uncle Ben. And I was so glad. And now, you might think that, the Spider-Verse movies are a work of art. They belong in a museum. The first few scenes of Across the Spider-Verse were, so beautiful, tearjerker. But I have to say that the Ninja Turtles movie was very aesthetically pleasing. And had like the pseudo claymation type look that really kinds of fit with a Nickelodeon universe. Yeah, for sure. It's the same animation studio that did both, right? Was it? All I know is that Sony was behind the Spider-Man movie. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I want to be right. I mean, it definitely looked similar. So if you told me, I would not be surprised. Right? I mean, no, definitely. I definitely agree. The TMNT, the TMNT movie is, it's just great. It's just good, and it shows that like, again, like just because something is made for kids doesn't mean that it can't be excellent and done with excellence. Absolutely. It takes a genius that I think Disney created this science. The science of connecting a 40-year-old and an 8-year-old and having both of them enjoy the same thing. Right. Like I was with my nephew who's 9. I think I enjoyed the movie a little bit more than he did. Which, it's okay. It is what it is. It wasn't Roblox. But, I don't apologize for that. Yeah, for sure. No, I'm definitely wrong. I don't know where I thought that was. It feels like it. But yeah, they said that they got some inspiration from the Spider-Verse movies. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Mike. Mm-hmm. And
I think that's the real movie magic, and
Mhm.
I yeah, there's just something magical about it. Okay, well, so me talking about Blue Beetle was the last movie I wanted to
Well, I
talk
do have
about
a
in my.
second movie.
Oh yeah, do it.
My two picks. I know we want to jump the gun to the
No,
future.
no, I'm excited.
So yeah, so I want to take a break from animation and just tell
Yeah,
you about my theatrical experience watching Fast X.
yes,
So this was more like an experiment. Like I can't tell you I enjoyed Fast X.
sure.
I wanted to be part of something ridiculous
Mm,
and senseless
yeah,
and just an explosion of like if if Mountain Dew was a technological experience. This is what
yeah,
Fast X was.
yeah,
Like you can't sit down with like a bunch of sixth graders and they can't come up with something like this. This has to become from some child prodigy who decided not to take his meds.
100%.
Yeah, like from the fact that Jason Momoa was like 2 parts Heath Ledger, 3 parts Jim Carrey from The Mask. Somehow John Cena treated this movie like it was an episode of WWE Raw. And he was somehow like this believable, like good dad. Even though in Fast 9 he was like the evil bad guy. So that was like the fact that they played like Rocket League with a giant bomb in Italy to save the Pope. Like, did I dream that? No, that happened.
That really happened, Mike.
Yeah. The somehow Vin Diesel, like the hero, the linchpin of the movie, somehow showed less emotion than Groot. How did he do that? I don't know. It takes talent to not emote. Like I would say, what I saw in Fast X made superhero movies look realistic.
Mm.
It made Guardians of the Galaxy 3 look as like a documentary comparatively. And like part of me is impressed. Like someone went full cartoon. Full like let's just throw every idea and not edit them. And that is bold. But a part of me is like that what did I just see?
Yeah.
Like, it was the ambition of Infinity War, but like the understanding of DreamWorks Minions.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't even think there were cars in that movie. I can't remember.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I yeah. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Yeah, it's one of those things where you look back on where it came from and how it got to where it is, and you're just like, why do people still pay to watch these movies? And I don't get it.
I have the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the numbers, America doesn't get it. Because it only made 145 million, but it made 704 million worldwide. So this movie wasn't for us, Adam. This movie
apparently.
was strictly for Thailand.
Yeah,
And,
apparently.
Yeah. That just blows my mind.
What was the budget? Do you have that readily available?
I don't have that, but I am.
No worries.
Yeah. I'm going to guess. You want to guess like 200 million? No,
At the minimum.
340 million.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's That's crazy.
Right. And I'm pretty sure Jason Momoa worked for free. Like he thought he was doing a TikTok video and it was secretly a movie. Like that's just brain explode. But I don't think we'll ever have. Well, actually, they're making 2 more Fast X. It's a 3-parter.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So I really have no idea what they could possibly add to that movie. I mean, they went to freaking Antarctica and had a submarine battle. There's nothing left. Jason Momoa blew up the Hoover Dam. There's
right?
nothing left.
They attacked the Pope. Like,
I know, right? So they're gonna have to fight aliens. That's
like, right? Like, whether you believe this or not, but like, like like they said in their movie, hey, we're gonna attack God's appointed mouthpiece here on Earth, the literal avatar of God.
yes, with a Rocket League bomb.
Right. Like like how who's more important? Right?
Right.
Like you make a Mount Rushmore of like the most important people on Earth. Like is there anybody on that list higher than the Pope? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I don't it's just bonkers. And I think that people can just tell that there's no substance.
Right. Is pure Mountain Dew.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine going down to Thanksgiving and just seeing bottles of Mountain Dew where food should be.
Right? Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's like, when you go to Thanksgiving, you want there to be a bottle or 2 of Mountain Dew.
Yes.
But, you can't have, Mountain Dew stuffing.
Right. Mountain Dew stuffing. I think that's the name of my review.
Yeah, it's just bonkers.
Yeah. So my third movie is actually something experimental, another experiment that we tried. And I don't even know how we came up with this movie, but it did really well in our numbers for when we did a podcast about it. Mm-hmm. And that's when we did the movie RRR.
Yes.
For some reason, that movie just hit people really well, and they really liked that episode. And that movie was also as bizarre, not as bizarre as Fast X, but I mean, it was a musical. It was Bollywood. It was a historical drama, I think. It involved
a love story.
A love story. It's about brothers giving each other piggyback rides. It got an Oscar for Best Song. Like RRR. I don't regret that 2 hour. Was it 3? Maybe it was 4. 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours.
Who knows?
Of my life went to RRR.
Yeah,
and I have to say, like, that movie was like totally an experience. Like, if you want to get into what India is doing in film, I don't know if you should go to RRR.
It might set the bar too high.
Yeah. But I just want to say, like, as a podcaster, I'm glad we found that golden nugget and we got to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that the audience said, "Hey, let's make this episode their best episode."
Yeah, it definitely was an experience. I'm glad that we're able to do that, and part of why I love this podcast is that it forces me to go see things that I wouldn't normally see, and there's literally no words to describe it other than what we talked about in our podcast. Yeah. But it's an experience. Like, you just have to, like, there's no substitute for watching. Our words don't do it justice.
Yeah, it's a very ambitious action movie.
Yeah.
And it shows you the fact that other countries are really good at making action movies, and they really know how to do. When they want to, they really know how to show good atmosphere, good choreography, and the story wasn't half bad.
Right.
A little silly, but maybe I think it's more for a different audience.
Right. Right. And I think that there's maybe this is the difference between RRR and Fast and the Furious, whereas like with RRR, everybody that was involved in that film
Mm-hmm.
leaned 100% into the tone, right?
Yeah,
Like they weren't pretending to be something that they weren't. They knew exactly what they were doing, which is making
right.
a modern Bollywood action comedy romance
Yeah,
blockbuster.
Step Brothers.
um, but for whatever reason, it just feels like for whatever reason, everybody in the Fast and the Furious movie is on a different page of wildly different books.
Right.
Like somebody hasn't told Vin Diesel for whatever reason that he's, you know, that he's not in a serious drama, right? Like he plays Dominic Toretto so straight and so
Right.
serious that it's ridiculous. And then, meanwhile Jason Momoa is,
He's got
reading
pigtails. He's playing hopscotch.
right, like he's reading Mad Magazine in, Zimbabwean, right?
Yes.
Like he's just out of this world. And
Right.
then, Jason Statham is like, playing this like action hero, and The Rock is The Rock, and it just feels so like the tone is just so inconsistent with everybody and
Yeah.
how they perform. You just kind of, it gives the audience whiplash.
Yeah. And the weird thing about that movie is the director thinks that like we want to see like tidbits of everyone.
Right.
We don't want to see everyone. Like if you took Infinity War and you did a whole you took 10 minutes to talk about War Machine, and then you took 10 minutes to talk about Mandarin, and then you don't have to bring in everybody.
Right.
Stick to 5 people.
Right. Right. And yeah, it's just yeah, it's just a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Yeah, so Mike, do you feel like that was a good place to move on from?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well,
I think
go ahead.
this is a great episode to put a nail in the coffin of all these movies that we're talking about and look forward to the future.
Mm.
There are people have heard our takes on animation in Barbie, but what's coming out in the future that we should get incredibly excited about.
Yeah. So, for me, I definitely feel like this episode could have been like it could have been just a rehash of
Mm-hmm.
the big headlines from the year. So I'm glad that we're able to get some some other movies and stuff like that, some screen time. But yeah, into the future, I mean, yeah, I have a couple of bold predictions, Mike, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, do you want to hear? I got 3 different takes for you, and
Bring it on.
maybe you can tell me if you agree, disagree, or maybe somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
My next, my first take that I want to have your take on is, um, I the Barbie cinematic universe or whatever they're gonna make is going to crash and burn. It's gonna be cringe. It's gonna be bad, but it's still going to make money. and I'm sad, I'm disappointed, but the biggest and I think the worst thing that's going to come from the Barbie movie is how many studios are going to try and viral market their movie with another movie, like what happened with Barbie and Oppenheimer, and it's just not going to be pretty.
Right. I think there's two things there that you're hitting on. One is taking something that's not so serious and adding like a serious, like, oh my gosh, it's a metaphor for blank.
Right.
And they're going to try that again, or someone's going to try. Like Mattel's going to try it with Polly Pocket. And Polly Pocket, and people are going to be like, no, I don't want to see Polly Pocket talk about wage inequality.
Right.
Yeah, right. And it's going to backfire.
For sure. For sure. The second thing, my second take, I think is a little bit more of a positive one. Due to the writer strike, I think, at least for their the early part of next year, we're gonna get a lot of really great indie movies coming out. And I think people are going to get exposed to different genres and different kind of films than they wouldn't normally go see. And, stuff from like A24 that's going to be coming out, other independent studios. I think it's really going to, I think it's going to be a real renaissance for independent films. And I think that's one of the positives coming out of, the whole writer strike situation.
Yeah. One thing I am noticing a trend in, and it could be because October is coming, but there's been a lot of horror movies that have just come out.
Yeah.
Like Haunting in Venice, Talk to Me, The Nun 2.
Yeah.
And so I hope, like, horror movies are kind of like, you don't know if you're supposed to watch them to enjoy a story or because you just want to be scared stupid. And so I always love it when someone talks about like a horror universe and talks about it like as a serious story universe. Because then it's like, okay, there's, they take them seriously. You can get behind it.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope that one of the big takeaways from the year, building off that take, is that people go and give movies and genres that they don't normally go see a chance. You never know, what might surprise you and what you might actually like. So that's hot take number 2. And that was more, I don't know if that was necessarily a hot take. I think that was just an observation. And then hot take number 3. I don't know if I want to speak this into existence, but I just don't. I'm just gonna say it. I think DC calls it quits before they get all their James Gunn movies out. I think they throw in the towel, and I just don't see the studio believing or willing to give James Gunn as much leash as he thinks he has. And maybe I'm cynical, but I just don't see it. I don't see it going the distance. What do you think, Mike?
Well, we know how they treat their friends.
Yeah.
They harass them. They're helicopter parents.
Right.
And those are the things they feel very ambitious about.
Right.
And what I'm hoping is what they learned from Blue Beetle is will like turn their hearts around and say, okay, we got a little leverage. We're back we're back in the green. Let's take what we learned and go with it. But I think you're right. I think it's WB not understanding how DC works, and they're going to rush something. Something's going to get rushed. There's going to be a fallout between James Gunn and insert famous person.
Right.
And, they're not going to have a way to turn the ship around.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I hope it doesn't happen, at least until we get another Batman movie. I'm really excited for I'm excited for that at least. But yeah, they just don't, the WB just doesn't give me the confidence, to think that it's going to be around for.
And I really think that, it's not even you can't even say that about all WB does, because they pull out something wonderful out of their butt and it makes $1 billion. And you got that was Barbie, dude. That was like a 1950s toy. You can't do that with the entirety of comic book lore in its history. But you can do that with Barbie?
Right. No, and it's, it's not like this is the first time that they might have issues, with a famous director, right? Like, there's a whole falling out with, Christopher Nolan, and
did he leave angry?
Yeah, I mean, that's why Oppenheimer wasn't released by WB, and the poor Patty Jenkins situation, which was so unfortunate. And we won't even talk about Superman, but but yeah, it's they just have this habit of burning bridges, and I don't know, I'm just not confident.
They're not doing this on any of their movies. They're not doing it for Dune.
Right.
They're not doing it for King George with Will Smith. I mean, I think there's someone at the top who hates comic books.
That hates DC, unless it's Batman for some reason.
Yeah. For some reason, he just he hates the idea that they're competing with Marvel. And he says, you know what? I want you to fail so you can do the cool sci-fi stuff and the cool artsy stuff.
Right, which is just such a shame.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, do you have any predictions for the future?
I do.
In the year to coming? Yes, let's hear it.
I have this theory, and it has to do with the writer's strike, that, during COVID 2020, TV in movies bailed us out. Now we're healthy, and now the movie industry has COVID. And so now we're bailing them out by going to see as many movies as we can. But I think because there's this creativity COVID over our theaters, that we can't go to the normal money makers now. Now there's these strange films that you didn't expect to be amazing, and they're being amazing. Like The Equalizer 3. Why is the third Equalizer doing so well in theaters when the other two were so darn forgettable?
There's nothing else to watch.
Yeah, why are these horror movies that no one has thought twice about? Why are they coming in full flex? Why are all these directors doing these horror movies? I half expect to see rocket powered, being done by that Nickelodeon movie, getting a 96 for its movie.
Yeah, totally.
Or something like all these weird things. It's there's a disease in Hollywood right now, and they're using a non-traditional medicine to fix it.
Right.
It's exciting and scary at the same time.
Right.
And I think Expendables 4 might be amazing.
Maybe. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree, Mike, and I think you were on to something there.
Mhm.
I think when times are uncertain, people want that escape.
Mhm.
And you think back to when Iron Man was in its heyday, the MCU was in its heyday, and that was right after the housing and the bank crash in 2008, right? Like that
Mhm.
was, and people were looking for some escapism, right? And and Marvel was something new. There was a new kid on the block, right?
Yeah.
And so I think now it's kind of come full circle now where times are tough, and people want to go and watch movies. They want that escape. But they're a little bit more choosy now, and they're looking for the the next Marvel, right? They're looking for the next thing, and they're looking for something that's original and new. That's what Marvel was, in 2008. But now it's 2023, and they're looking for new things. And I think that they're starting to find it in movies about that are alternative in their source material, and that's why things like Mario and
Mhm.
Spider-Man are making money into the Spider-Verse, across the Spider-Verse, because it's different, it's fresh, it's new, it's something that's familiar, but it's a little different. And um, I definitely think that that video games in um, you know are going to be bigger and bigger source material into the future. With The Last of Us being such a massive hit that it was. Yeah, I think that we're gonna see more video game adaptations, and judging by how much money you know like Dungeons and Dragons and Gran Turismo and Mario made, I think studios are now willing to take a chance on stuff, and I think people are
Mhm.
too.
Yeah. And like the rules are thrown out the window.
Yeah,
And so I'm looking at these movies. There's Spy Kids Armageddon coming out. That could be amazing. You know, the old
right.
rules said that it was going to be horrible, but now we're under new Hollywood.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's people are realizing that they can be discerning, and um, I think streaming has a lot to do with that too. I think people over COVID realized that seeing Fast and the Furious on their 60-inch, HD 4K TV is just as good as seeing it in the theater, but the experience of watching Barbenheimer can't be replicated. So they're looking
Right.
for movie experiences.
And I think that part is slowly coming back. I mean, 2020 to 2022, everything went to the streaming services. If you couldn't get it on Peacock, you got it on Paramount. You got it on HBO even before it hit the theaters. Netflix was pretty much a good percentage of Hollywood movies that were getting nominated.
Right.
And now people are like, well, maybe what if I want to leave the house? You know?
Right.
And I think that affects the review too. It's like, did I leave the house? Did I have popcorn? Did I have a drink with this?
Right.
And if the movie's horrible, you give it a worse review because you left the house for this.
Right.
But if it's a
Right.
good movie, you're like, and I got popcorn with this? Amazing.
Right. Right. For sure. No, the great take, Mike. Good take.
Yeah. So, what movie are you most excited about in the near future?
In the near future, man, I know I talked about the creator, and I talked about Dune 2 Part 2. Those are definitely ones that I am super excited about. Um, but um, like in terms of like, oh man, movies in 2024. Um, that's a great question, Mike. Um, I I guess I would have to say, um, I have three different answers for you, and let me know if let me know how you feel about them. The first being, on a personal level, I'm so excited for the new King Kong movie, Godzilla King Kong movie. I just I loved the last one. I'm so excited for this one. I can't wait to see it in a theater. Just the spectacle of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think it's just an experience that you can't replicate at home. So I'm so excited for that. Um, and then the second one that I'm super excited about is the second Joker movie with Joaquin
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix and um Lady Gaga. I feel like that movie is going to be an acid trip. It's going to be weird. It's going to be it's going to be a ride. And yeah, I think Joaquin Phoenix absolutely dominated in his role as Joker the first time around. So I'm excited to see if he can replicate it. And then the third movie is in um maybe I have four, but I don't want to take too many in case you take it. But um I don't want to take anything away from you, but maybe I'll just say maybe I'll just say all four. But I'm excited for the Ballerina movie. It's made by the same people that did the John Wick movies. It's just supposed to take place between the
Ah.
third and the fourth movie.
Mhm.
So that'll be cool. Anna de Armas is supposed to be the lead
Yeah.
in it. So mhm.
Are you excited about that 3-part, the Continental?
Yeah, that should be really cool. I mean, I don't have too much in the way of expectations for it because I really don't I just don't know what to expect. Um, but it should be really cool. I think it works as a TV show. Um, if uh if they get the right people on it. But yeah, it should be pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess maybe the one that maybe everyone is waiting for, and I swear every time I see news about this, I get more and more happy confused.
Mm-hmm.
But the new Deadpool movie, um, I it keeps seeming like it's the it because they just keep bringing in these like X-Men, like Fox X-Men actors,
Mm-hmm.
and they keep saying that this is supposed to be like the bridge for MCU into the Fox universe, and
Right.
they just keep bringing in. It feels like every day there's new news about who's in this now. Um,
Right.
so I mean, I'm intrigued. I hope it's not a hot mess, but yeah, those are the four that I guess. I know you asked for one, but that's what you get.
Right. Yeah. For me, I don't have anything I'm super excited about. More intrigued.
Sure.
Like I'm really wondering how Rebel Moon is going to be.
Yeah, that comes out pretty soon. Is that straight to
December,
streaming?
and that's going to be Netflix.
Yeah.
Like, is it going to be just like, the poor man's Star Wars? Or is it going to be something? Is it going to get Snyder back into the conversation?
Mm.
I'm interested in that, and I wonder how I'm going to have to finagle getting a Netflix that isn't my parents. Or maybe I can still bum off theirs. I don't know.
Yeah, that should be really good. I mean, I think there's a lot of good sci-fi coming out. Um I don't want to keep harping on the creator, but that looks so good. And Dune 2, and then that Rebel Moon. I think there's a lot of good sci-fi coming.
Yeah. The second thing is, and I know this has to be a good story based on the fact that the video games are known for getting tearjerkers, and that is the Gears of War movie that people keep talking about.
Sure.
And I hope it's not been canned. I think it's overdue, and if people are looking for a series that kind of writes itself, any director would get a freebie if they could handle it properly. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. And probably my favorite wrestler turned actor, Dave Bautista, has been just on the campaign trail to make that happen.
God bless him. I knew there was a reason I loved him.
He's a massive fan of the series. He, even to the point that I think that they made him a character in the most recent Gears of War.
Well, he's shaped like a Gears of War guy.
Right. No, for sure.
He looks like a mammoth guy and 60 tons of metal.
For sure. For sure.
My third movie just perplexes the junk out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is they're making a sequel to Gladiator?
Yeah!
Question mark?
Yeah! Doesn't he die? He dies right at the end of the first one. So what? What can it be Gladiator about? Right. Is it a different... all the main characters, the main villain, they all die at the end. What is this movie about?
And even the trailer shows all the old actors talking about what the movie could be about, so...
I don't get me started on it's just so gratuitous. Why?
Yeah, I mean that is the question. Why? But then from a director standpoint, why not? I mean the thing won an Oscar. All we need to do is figure out what made it so amazing and force the new actors to be as amazing as the ones that died in the movie.
And don't get me wrong, I love Ridley Scott, but it just feels like sometimes he's just, I don't know, it just feels like some of his stuff is just hit or miss, and sometimes it's really, really good, and other times it's Prometheus.
Yeah. Didn't they make a sequel to Prometheus? I can't imagine
Covenant?
Yeah. No one's talking about that movie, which is not a good sign.
No, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of Ridley Scott, I totally forgot about this. And I guess it's not coming out next year. It's coming out later this year. But I'm super excited. And speaking of Joaquin Phoenix, I'm excited for the Napoleon movie that's coming out. That's directed by Ridley Scott. And I know I just got done trashing him, but I am excited for Napoleon. I think it'll be good. And I mean, anything with Joaquin Phoenix in it, I'm on board.
Yeah, apparently Gladiator 2 will have Denzel Washington.
What?
And Pedro Pascal. So, two people that scream were gladiators from the Roman era.
I mean, technically Pedro Pascal did fight in a gladiatorial combat in Game of Thrones. He fights... There's a famous scene of him fighting the Mountain in one-on-one combat. So, I mean, there's history there, I guess.
Yeah, that's that blows my mind.
Yeah, that's so random. I don't know. What? But to me, it's why doesn't Ridley Scott just say, I know I made this movie and I love this time period and I want to make another movie about gladiators, but it's going to be called something totally different.
Not Gladiator 2.
But he's like, no, this is a he's saying this is a sequel to the first movie, but none of the characters are in it. So because they're dead. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Right.
It's so self-aggrandizing.
It's like Rogue One, too.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
None of the original cast are in it, but you loved Rogue One, so you're going to love Rogue One, too.
Exactly. Right. And it's not like there's a lack of stories that can or could be told from that time period, right? Like everybody loves, Gladiators and Ben-Hur and those movies. So it's like there's like people would go see these movies, but like I don't know, it just feels like such a pat on the back, He's just like, you remember that movie that I made that won a bunch of Oscars? Come see the second one. You're like, yes. But why?
Right. Oh my gosh. Well,
we definitely got to do an episode on it.
Yeah. I like the idea of just finding these movies and picking them apart and then seeing what makes them tick.
100%. Yeah, it definitely feels like there's a lot of stuff to come, and I'm curious to see kind of how stuff goes.
If it's like 2023, Spy Kids Armageddon is going to be 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right? But also at the same time, it's going to be like, oh, hey, we're just going to shadow drop Jack and Dexter 2, the movie, and it's going to gross $2 billion.
Yeah. And also a documentary on soybeans.
Right.
By Christopher Nolan is going to be the number one movie of the year.
Right. I think at the end of the day, that's what it's going to be, right? Like, I think people... but I was thinking onto something, too, with, like, the Spy Kids movie, too, right? Because I think everybody and their mom was like, yeah, of course, like, the Mario movie is going to make money, right? Like, everyone was like, yeah, it's gonna gross a good amount of money. But then you're like, $1 billion worth of money? That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's Spy Kids definitely also has that same feel, right? Like, everyone's like, of course, like, it's gonna make a nostalgia money, but it's gonna gross like $1 billion. Hello? Can you hear me, buddy?
Oh my gosh. How long was I talking?
The last thing I heard was you saying, well, it's been a good year.
Well, it's been a good year. And I hope the next year is just as good. And just as crazy and weird, too.
Right. And, I hope that we can look back and we could see how some of our predictions, how they did. And but more importantly, how wrong we were.
Yes, and when we do that episode about RRR2,
the R-ing,
yeah, and it puts us above Joe Rogan's podcast, then we will know.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And if you made it this far and you have recommendations for some hidden gems for us to check out, definitely hit us up. Let us know.
In actor spotlights or actress spotlights that we'd like to do.
Yeah, for sure. I love doing those episodes. Those are always super fun.
And just to let you know that it's been great. Thank you, fans, for listening to us. And stay tuned. We're going to have more ideas, more thoughts. And maybe our second season will be... No, I'm going to say absolutely. Our second season is going to be just as crazy. I'm calling it now. Tom Hanks, guest star.
Oh yeah, baby. Well, I've been Adam.
I've been Mike.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Welcome to Storytime Improv. Word of the day.